So kind of something that goes hand in hand with resolution often is frame rates. Frame rates refer to how many images per second you're going to shoot. Because what's happening is we're shooting basically a series of still images, and then we play those still images quickly in succession, and that succession of playing still images tricks our brain into thinking there's movement occurring, when in actuality we're just watching a whole bunch of stills. So I've listed here kind of the major frame rates, so let's just kind of go through these. 23.98p, 24p, and 25p are the standard for movies, and it looks more cinematic. And 29.97 and 30 are broadcasts. It looks video. And I noted here that it's a 25% difference. So it's a 6-frame difference from 30p to 24p, right? And if you do the math, that should come out to 25% on the 24p side. So like 6 out of 24 is a quarter, right? So it's 25% difference. And the way I put it is, if you were to lose 25% of your body weight, that would be a very noticeable difference. Wouldn't you agree? So it's the same. If you're looking closely and you start to develop your eye to differentiate between what 29.97 looks like and what 24p looks like, then you will see that difference. It will look much more video to you versus that more cinematic look, because it's a 25% difference. Some other frame rates to note here: there's 48p, 50p, and 60p. Now, 60 frames per second is another broadcast standard that is in use in some places, but I don't think it's as widespread as 30p. But one of the things that we as DSLR filmmakers are able to take advantage of is we can shoot slow motion if your camera can shoot 60 frames per second. So for example, I write in here 120p slow motion. There's some cameras that can shoot 120 frames per second and beyond. But in the DSLR world, I think the fastest available is 120 frames per second for a DSLR. So what this means is that if you shoot more frames per second, but you display them at the standard speed, then you'll get true slow motion. So for example, if we shoot 48 frames per second, so you're shooting 48 pictures every second, right? But we display them at 24 frames per second, that's the normal speed that you would display them. What happens is that 48 frame sequence gets spread out over 2 seconds. Does that make sense? Because you took 48 pictures, but you're only showing 24 per second, so you need 2 seconds to show it. And what happens is it slows it down, right? You've slowed it down by half, or you're going half speed, let's say, or it displays like it looks like it's half speed. I hope this makes sense. Okay, so all right, so then the more frames per second that you shoot, the slower you can slow it down, the slower it'll appear in post. So if you shoot 60 frames per second and you display those at 24 frames per second, it's more than twice as slow, right? And 120 frames per second, again, it's even slower. Now, you can slow it down. You can create slow motion in other ways as well. You can just slow the images down in post, meaning like just adding more frames in post, which are they're the same exact frames. Or you can do something called Interpolate new frames. And what that does is the computer, if it has the right software like Twixt or Optical Flow in Final Cut Pro 10 or Time Warp in After Effects, it will create frames in between the frames that you shot, because it it basically calculates all the, like whatever the image is in frame 1 and whatever the image is in frame 2, and it tries to figure out, oh, if there was a 1.5, what would that look like based on 1 and 2? And then it tries to recreate that image. And if you look at different examples of Twixtor or optical flow, you can see the difference on how that works. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments and we will be sure to try and help you guys out. Thank you.